Hey, Wibbs! What about Shamble Shark? Wibbs! Are you down here? Wibbs!
Hey, Bob, what's up?
Ah! Oh. Oh.
Ow.
Wibbs, there's soup everywhere. What is that?
Bob, you're a genius! There's no time to waste. Alright, so none of that happened, but hey, Slivers.
Going in games.
Hey guys! Once again, it is not some, not most, but in fact, all the Wibbs, and the deck I'm bringing you today is quite near and dear to my heart. Feast your eyes on this. This, my friends, is all the Sliver Queen, and she is the rare I pulled out of my very first pack of Magic the Gathering. And she kinda looks it too. Now, when I was 12, I laughed at the concept of having sleeves on my deck, but we all have regrets. A lot more than most.
Hey, what the?
But what was really important to me back then is how you can tell how badass she was just by looking at her. For years, I got to be that kid with the Sliver deck that nobody wanted to play, and I've never been happier. But I'm not the only one. Slivers are one of, if not just the most popular tribe in Magic's history. They originally saw print in Tempest and Stronghold, but a whole host of new Slivers were added in Legions, and even more during Time Spiral block. Last year, they got a half-hearted revival and reimagining in M14, which saw a lot of the older Slivers receive strictly better upgrades, but strictly worse art. Is it weird that they look like aliens, but now they look like predators? This isn't a coincidence, Wizards. I'm on to you! And people tried to make them standard viable. There was a Nihilist that was making rounds at bigger tournaments, but they just couldn't seem to get their newly sprouted feet on the ground. But with M15, Wizards made it very apparent that they wanted the Slivers to have their chance of reclaiming their title of most feared creature type in the multiverse. And they did that with one card. Now, if Sliver Overlord was the king, then he is most definitely the one that's sleeping around with the queen. That's really kind of awkward when you think about it. I'm speaking, of course, about Sliver Hivelord.
Just call me Sliver Dad.
So without further ado, I bring you the 5-color all-in behemoth that can be known only as all the Slivs. This list is running a hearty 31 of the slimy bastards, so let's go around the room and introduce you to everybody. At the 1-drop slot, we have 4 Galerider and 1 Striking Sliver.
What? You mean you're not running at least 8 1-drops in your aggressive creature deck?
Yeah? I mean, sure, the list started off that way, but First Strike isn't always as relevant as you think it would be, and even less so once all your dudes have flying. Now, of course, there's situations where we'd absolutely want First Strike, but that's why he's still in there. But if you're trying to swing through the air every turn with as much damage as possible, you're not really worrying about profitable blocking scenarios. Slivers really live at the 2-drop slot, with more than half the creatures in the deck sitting right here. The most important of which are going to be our 4 Manaweft Sliver. This is without a doubt the workhorse of the deck. You wouldn't believe how easy it is running 5 colors when every creature you have also gets to double as a Bird of Paradise. Or wait, maybe you would, because that's f***ing obvious. Turn 1, you play Galerider. Turn 2, Manaweft, and all of a sudden turn 3, Sliver Hivelord comes to the party raring and ready to go.
Anybody seen the queen?
And if you don't have a big guy to throw into the fray, you can just throw more little guys out, and then they produce that much more mana the next turn. Alongside the Manawefts, there's our last set of 4-ofs in the deck, and that's our Predator Slivers. Do I really have to explain why giving +1/+1 to all of our Slivers is good? No, didn't think so. We then have our 3 Sentinel Slivers, and probably my favorite of the new M15 Slivers, Diffusion Sliver. A bear that gives all your creatures vigilance? Sign me up. I'll just tell you right now that there's 3 Chord of Calling in this list, and whenever you get to attack and chord for something during combat, really stupid things can happen. Plus, this is ultra synergistic with our Manaweft Slivers. Being able to attack and then tap your dude's second main phase to spew out more dudes feels about as unfair as it is. Now, Diffusion you're probably thinking should be a 4-of, but it's pseudo-hexproof, although wonderful in the matchups where it really matters, doesn't do anything against something that doesn't have any point removal. When I'm playing mono green and I rip 2 of these off the top of my deck, I'm sad. Rounding out our 2-drops, we got 1 Venom and 1 Leeching Sliver. Death Touch gets hilarious when paired with First or Double Strike, but once again gets much less relevant whenever we're just flying over our opponent's creatures most of the time. Even so, you definitely want the option to grab him if you're playing against monsters or something, because if you have the option to chord for him during combat after they played a Storm Breath and you have a Galerider out, it's hilarious. Leeching Sliver just sort of serves as the 5th Predator Sliver of the deck, because most of the time you're just using an attack on 1 damage to your attacks. But you can get in the awkward situation where your opponent is down to some worthless amount of life, but you just can't break through his blockers to get that last bit of damage in. Leeching Sliver lets you bypass that headache by just letting you turn your dude sideways and win right then. We only have a handful of 3-drops, the most important being our 3 Blur Sliver. But we also get a lot of utility from our 1 of Syphon Sliver. When you're playing an aggressive-minded deck, haste is good. Hell, it's probably the best. But with Slivers, haste goes to a whole nother level. Play this guy after a turn 2 Manaweft, and you can just turn him sideways immediately to power out another dude. And then you can turn that dude sideways to power out another dude. And then if one of those dudes was Sentinel Sliver, then the metaphorical shit has most certainly hit the fan. As for Syphon Sliver, giving all your guys lifelink is obviously good. Having him in there can save us in matches we have absolutely no business winning, and by now I think you're starting to see how much Chord gets to do for us in this deck. Our only 4-drop creatures are 3 Bonescythe Sliver, but we also have 2 Bident of Thassa. Bonescythe Sliver just kind of says you win. Now, if you've been playing the most straightforward game ever, you probably went turn 1 Galerider, into Predator, into Blur, into Bonescythe, and that's something like 20 damage on turn 4. Through the air. Bonescythe speaks for himself. But Bident is there for when things aren't necessarily going your way. Even one Sliver getting through is bonkers when it means you're drawing cards, and if we're living in Magical Christmas Land and we have Venom and Striking Sliver out, and we can actually activate this ability, whew, bring it on! Our 5-drops are, of course, one of the promiscuous, yet overprotective Sliver, and 1 Thorncaster Sliver. Hivelord is a no-brainer, he's huge, and his ability isn't good, it's broken. They're either exiling this, or they're losing. Thorncaster has stupid synergy with Venom Sliver, which almost harkens back to the days of Basilisk Collar on Cunning Sparkmage. Granted, this combo is nowhere near as efficient or cheap, but being able to tutor for either part of it makes it a lot more viable. Our last Sliver, and the top of our curve, is of course 1 Megantic Sliver.
No.
What do you mean?
No, it's not.
What is it?
Constricting Sliver.
It's what?
Yeah.
I put that in there.
Yeah.
What the f***? Nah, just kidding, you guys. Constricting Sliver's a damn house. I know it might not seem like it, seeing as you get the same thing for 3 mana 7 different ways this Sunday, but those don't turn all your creatures into the same thing. Exiling 1 dude seems like a steep investment, but whenever you're exiling 2 more next turn, it seems a lot more like mana well spent.
But Wibbs, this is like turn 6 and we can't have that many more Slivers left to play.
Well, don't we segue into our lands nicely? 4 Sliver Hive pretty much guarantee that by the time you resolve Constricting Sliver, you're getting another trigger out of it. This beautiful piece of real estate lets us cast our Slivers whenever we want to, and if we just need to make some dudes to seal up that victory, we can. Granted, we need to have a Sliver on the field to use the ability, but that's almost never an issue. But let's say it's late game against Control, Verdict just hit, you have no dudes left to activate Sliver Hive. Who are you going to turn to? Mutavault. Now this list is pretty greedy as it is, so we're only running 2 of this pseudo Sliver land, but boy does he play nice with Sliver Hive. End of turn, he can tap to activate himself, giving us a Sliver in play and letting us use Sliver Hive to recoup our losses. Sure, getting a 1/1 for 6 mana doesn't seem like the healthiest of investments, but what are we playing, guys? A Predator Sliver off the top and we could be swinging for 5 out of nowhere, and every point of damage matters against Control. The rest of the lands aren't particularly interesting, but they all serve to keep our mana good and balanced. For shocks, we have 4 Breeding Pool, 2 Temple Garden, and 2 Stomping Ground. All green because we need it for early Manaweft and Predator, and Chord does in fact have 3 green mana symbols in its cost. The deck benefits greatly from the addition of the enemy pain land, so we're running 2 Battlefield Forge, 2 Yavimaya Coast, 1 Cave of Koilos, and 1 Shivan Reef. These guarantee our colors, but if we have Sliver Hive out, we can just use the colorless instead of taking damage. Even so, we're running 4 Mana Confluence because we want our opening hands to be as smooth as possible. The sideboard is still in its early stages, but at a glance it's fairly obvious as to what our greatest adversary is. A full 10 cards in the sideboard are dedicated to beating Control. There's 3 Golgari Charm, 2 Negate, 2 Dispel, 2 Pithing Needle, and 1 Jace Memory Adept. Charms to fight Supreme Verdict and get our dudes back from detention or banishment. Negates and Dispels to keep our opponent off of the game plan for as little mana as possible. And the Pithing Needles are there to neuter our opponent's Planeswalkers, because that shit's just annoying. Jace, just mill him 10 and watch him poop a little. The other 5 slots are dedicated to 1 of Slivers that we also have in the main board, being Venom, Striking, Diffusion, Syphon, and Thorncaster respectively. Playing against red or black decks, Diffusion and Syphon are probably coming in. Monsters, the extras of Striking, Venom, and Thorncaster go a long way in making sure that all combats go in your favor. This is still the early weeks, of course, so there's still a whole lot of M15's impact that's yet to be seen, so feel free to change the deck up however you want. On Cockatrice, I've been running into a lot of mono green and red-white Pyromancer, but there's even wacky Return to the Ranks brews and a lot of blue-red 5. But that's it, folks. The Hive has been good to me in my 16 years of Magic the Gathering, and may their squirmy, scythe-appendage bodies carry its many victory as well. Now, this isn't the most competitive-minded deck, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to find something more enjoyable before rotation. I mean, who doesn't want to cast an Indestructible Fatty on turn 3? Or swing for 20 damage on turn 4? Yeah, that goes on for a while. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. You can check us out on our various social media pages, and be sure to comment telling us what you guys would like to see next. But until next time, peeps, Wibbs out! All freaking day and just go, 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 dudes gone, dudes gone, dudes! Alright, that's probably good.